No, welcome to another night of Menaces, where we're talking about what tonight, boys?
I put you guys
on the spot.
He's put it on me, but he's the one who want to talk about determinism, Molinism, open theism.
Man, all the isms. We're going to
isms. Ever heard of those?
Isms. All right. No, I haven't. I think I've heard of them, but I have never used them in a sentence.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So you tell us where we're starting, what they mean first for C-minus average students like me.
Well, Ben, you feel free to weigh in a lot of your opinions on this, but the general definition, and I will say, like, I'm not going to give like my perspective, but what the three perspectives are. Determinism would be that God determines everything from the beginning to the end of history is all caused and determined by him. There's nothing that happens outside of his doing, his will, his sovereignty, right?
Okay, so everything is done within his will?
Everything.
Is it done by God?
Hey. Let's just go.
Sorry.
Because we're going to go like,
No.
So let's do determinism, right?
Yeah.
How do we say it?
Determinism.
Okay.
You got it.
I think I added illism, I think.
Determinalism.
That's what I did. That sounds better.
I like it.
Sounds more Christian. Okay, and then we go, it's God is over everything, past, present, future, sees all, knows all, determines all.
Yep.
That's why the word determinism.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
determines all, that's a big one.
Yeah. So, and to quickly answer Ben's question without going on and on about it, he doesn't have to directly do it, but he's still determined that someone does it. So he's still the determining factor behind everything, even if, let's say, Satan, a classic example you could probably use to understand it is that God allowed Satan to do things to Job, right? Mm-hmm. You could say allowed, or you could say caused. It's a matter of where you fall theologically, but the argument really is about, is there any sovereignty that can thwart God's sovereignty and God's will? Can any will stand against his? So if God is determined everything to happen, can someone alter what he has determined will happen? Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
Open theism is the polar opposite. It would be that God doesn't know the future, that he actually learns and retains information. And where it gets kind of tricky is when you kind of rationalize how God knows everything, because everyone would say God's omniscient, probably besides the open theist. And I would say, I don't know where that stands, but I would kind of categorize that. That can get very heretical because you're saying God is learning new information, and the Bible clearly teaches he's omniscient. He knows everything.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but it's a way that they would rationalize certain texts or certain situations in life. The Holocaust, like really bad things that happen, like God didn't foresee this, but he tells us what to do with it in the time being, or he didn't at one point and he looked through history down the scope of time and saw and learned what would come about. Do you see what I'm saying? See how it gets kind of tricky?
Yeah, I need a lot of Bible verses for that. Okay, what's the third one?
The third one's Molinism, which Ben and I had a conversation.
I swear I wanted to have that sound effect.
That's all I thought about
tonight.
Powers, dude.
But I literally didn't, because I'm like, I'm just going to keep using it all night.
It's okay, I'll just say it all night.
Okay, good.
Cool.
Yeah, so the other one, Molinism, would be, and I don't know the history of Molinism. I'm not very educated in this field, but anybody who knows what Molinism is more thoroughly welcome to chime in, message us, whatever.
Yeah,
but I would say the definition, kind of just real quick snapshot or rapid fire definition, would be God kind of looks through the infinite possibilities of history and chooses the one that lines up mostly with what his will already is, with what pleases him. Kind of like the multiverse, right? Hey, whoa, I'm just saying. Similar concept. That's a way that someone could kind of understand how that operates. He would say, he knows what his will is already. He says, if I give free creatures the full reign to do whatever they want, and they do those things freely, what would bring about what I want to come about in history more than anything else? And that's the history that he is determined or authorized to exist. Does that make sense?
I need a lot of verses
It's called
for that
something
one too.
called middle knowledge. It's knowledge that's not yet existent and not non-existent either. It's kind of a middle middle of the road, hasn't happened, but it's a hypothetical reality, if you will.
Okay. Yeah, you explained it very, very well. And I think the more you explained it, the worse it got in my opinion.
Yeah.
To be honest.
I'm not a Molinist. Yeah.
Hey, I just found out like this weekend, I think on Saturday we were talking, or no.
No, that was
last week, a little
Thursday.
Bit. Yeah. So we got together and we're chatting last Thursday, and I'm talking to him about some ideas I've got in my weird head. And he's like, "Oh, you're a Molinist."
No, no.
I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't even know what that is. And he's like, yeah, you are, because you believe da 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 da. And I'm like, bro, that's just what I believe. Like, I'm not this or that. You could say whatever.
Nice.
Thanks.
Yeah, I wasn't to make my intentions more clear, Ben. I wasn't trying to say you're a Molinist. I was just trying to say, oh, what you're explaining to me right now is Molinism. What you're saying about the multiverse, you were saying, hey, let's do an episode about this, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of like Molinism.
Okay, wait. So I need to hear what Ben was saying.
Okay, bro.
Are we going there now?
Oh, we're going.
We're not gonna get right there right now. But the reason this conversation came up, Dennis, for your, for context for you, is because one of the episodes that I want to do is how I think the multiverse, which is like all the rage and in vogue right now in physics and in mathematics and all this stuff, to kind of explain, because they're actually getting away from a lot of the concepts of Big Bang and things existing eternally. Yeah. They're kind of moving away from that because the physics are beyond that now. The math's beyond that.
It's not because of the physics. It's because social media is turning people on to understanding or like talking more. And the people are like, wait a second, we're being fooled by all this, and more people are talking about it. So now they're like, yeah, let's scoot over here and talk about multiverse now.
I mean, that's happening too, but those conversations are being backed by like facts and science and discoveries that are being made. Oh, sorry.
He doesn't like science, bro.
I know.
You gotta be careful.
I'm just, anything that says, oh, we're going to backtrack on anything that they've been teaching and shoving down our throats for the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah, I get that.
To me is all bullshit. Like, it's like,
right.
There's a reason
that
you're doing this.
On that same page, the universe is now supposedly 80 billion years because of James Webb, because the telescope just found more light further out. Okay. The universe is bigger.
So much sense.
So what was it before? 20 billion?
40. I think it was 40. They've doubled it to like 80 billion.
Yeah.
So it's just
90?
like
they just 70.
They just keep kicking the can further.
Yeah, it's kind of like when that article. Did you hear about the article where they were saying the hottest day or something like that in the last like 1,200 years or something in record, and everyone's like, how could you possibly know that? Like, they didn't even start recording the climate, like tracking it for until like 100 years ago or something.
Yeah,
people are just getting paid to put models together that don't make any sense, and that make us look dumb and then look so smart. They're getting paid for it.
Yeah. So anyway, the conversation came up because I was talking about how I want to do a episode on the multiverse, because that's all in, it's in vogue right now. It's all the rage. And it's a concept that a lot of scientists are talking about, physicists are talking about, as one possibility of explaining this reality. Because a lot of the things they're discovering, especially with like quantum mechanics, all that kind of stuff, is that the universe, they say, isn't locally real. And basically that means that it's kind of a shadow of a higher reality, something along those lines. And we could go into that deeper. We'll go into it in another episode. But
yeah, because I don't believe any of it.
What do you mean? Literally, as Christians, we believe that there's a whole other reality that affects this reality.
Right, but they're not tapping into it through technology. No way.
I would agree with Dennis here. Technology, I don't think, is what taps in. It's spiritual worship. All spiritual, that does. Dude.
Yes.
Even if technology is involved, which I think that's the silver lining between the two of you guys. I think it's. I
just broke Ben's heart tonight. I broke Ben's heart.
No, I think we're just using different words to describe the same thing.
Sure. To
some degree, because realistically, if you guys use the word spiritual, because that's the word that's been written down in our books, in our ancient texts, since the beginning of writing, and it's just been referred to as spiritual. Now we could use different words.
Sure.
And it doesn't change the meaning, the result, the truth. It doesn't change it at all.
Not to backtrack a little bit, but I think actually I agree with you, Ben. Because here's why though, because there's no such thing as neutrality. Even atheists would worship their version of who God is, even if it's themselves. Everybody is worshiping a God. Everyone says this is the moral ought, this is the standard, this is how men should live. And everybody, including Christians, would push their view on the rest of creation and say we're all supposed to conform to this image, whatever that image is. So I'd say that is worship, even if it's non-religious in the sense, it is absolutely spiritual worship.
Yeah, no, that's a really, really great point.
So I think I take back what I said.
Nice. Welcome to my side.
Not all the way back.
Dark side.
Not all the way back.
Just come on,
just kind of back.
Don't go into Ben's head because
I don't want to go there,
get out.
dude.
He won't get out, man.
Bro, I'm not even
no
out.
way out.
I'm still in there. I'm stuck.
Forever, dude.
I'm stuck.
I kind of sometimes want to visit though because it's kind of cool.
Oh, it's fun. It's definitely fun. Okay,
doubt.
so the multiverse, which is being talked about right now, has all the rage, right? To me, makes a lot of sense. And I was telling him it makes a lot of sense. Not that there actually exists an infinite number of realities and universes out there, because in the multiverse, they literally believe every single decision in human history by every single human has split off and created an alternative timeline, an alternative universe, an alternative. Right. And in every single one of those, if I go like this or if I go like this, each of those created an alternative universe. Yeah. And it determines the rest of human history from every single minute decision everywhere.
It's like in the Mandela effect.
So that gets into it too, alternative timelines.
Well, that's what they believe. That's why they would say. That's why they would say it's real.
Right.
Is because of what you're talking about.
So to me, it makes sense that God, who is all-knowing, created the reality that we exist in, right? In a way that brought about the exact result he wanted from beginning of time to the end of time. Because he could have created this reality with any little difference and it would have resulted into something totally different down the line. Okay, just like a bullet. If you're off by like a millimeter from the beginning, 1,000 yards down the way, it's a building away. It's way off. So God created everything from the beginning, knowing what all of the possibilities
Molinism.
Could have ever been from every single human action, every single animal's action, every single leaf that falls a certain way, every single wave that hits the rocks a certain way and deteriorates the sand a certain way. Everything that he knew in his mind, the multiverse exists in God's mind, and he chose the exact reality to create, which brings about the results that he wants throughout all of time. That's what I believe.
So and the multiverse only existed in his mind.
Only existed in his mind, in his omniscience. Right. But the reality that he chose to create was the one that was to bring about the results he wanted. And the apex, the pinnacle of the results that he wanted has nothing to do with you, me, the leaves, the animals. Jesus. It was all about Jesus. Yeah. The whole point of creation was for Jesus to come, Jesus to die, Jesus to resurrect, and to be glorified for eternity all the more, not only as creator, but also as savior.
Can I ask a question?
I would love for you to ask a question.
In a way, though, doesn't that mean that creation determines what happens? Because he only chose what creation would do as most pleasing to him?
Hold on. Say that again.
Wouldn't that mean that creation itself, creatures, determine what God does? Because he only chose that because of what they would do, because it's most pleasing to him. So in a way, it's still determinism, but isn't it the inverse? It's determinism from free creatures.
I don't know. I feel like
hang on. Hold on. I'll clarify it for you. Do you understand what you're saying?
Not really.
So
I think I had one too many. High noon.
So you had like
2.6%.
He had a quarter of one.
It's because he's wearing a college.
He doesn't drink much, people.
Still getting paid.
We don't really drink.
Still getting paid.
He actually dumped it out and he just put sparkling water in it too.
I just need an excuse to kill some time so I can think about an answer.
Cool, he just wants to get a sponsor.
Yeah.
So, all right. So God saw all the different possibilities of creation and
based on what creatures would do.
Destinies based on what creatures would do. and he chose the one that he likes the most, or that glorifies him the most,
Right.
or his son the most.
That he could execute his will and glorifies Christ.
But it's still creation that's making the choices. He's just choosing
what creation did.
What creation did.
So creation's the determiner.
See, that's where it changes
That's where it gets kind of
right?
messy at that point. Yeah.
Bro, why are you doing this to me?
Well, all I'm saying is go listen to some arguments about it.
I don't agree with that.
Why
did you do this at the end? Why'd you do it right now in the beginning?
Listen, I don't agree. I just
asked the question.
I don't agree with that, but I think it's a really cool concept. But I don't agree with it.
Yeah,
okay,
I agree with you.
So creation determines what God does.
Let me give you an example. I want Ben to drink a high noon on
Sponsored by
High Noon on the 14th of August. Thank you. Wow. I'm like March 14th of August, right? 2023. Now, because it pleased me and it would glorify my intentions, but I didn't cause him to do it. Ben did it. So I chose the reality that he would do it. So in the result, he would be the determiner of what I chose because you did it in this reality.
Right.
At this time on this day.
Yeah, but
so you're determining my choices now.
Right. But based on the reality he creates, it brings
Does he create it?
Of course he creates it.
How does he create it?
Because he literally goes, exist, and that reality came into being.
Does he create the space for reality to exist, or does he create
bingo
the reality itself?
You did it. You got it, Dennis. That was good.
Does he create
you just jumped ahead, man.
For reality?
Did he create just like a space where the wills of creatures could just go at it, and then he would go, this one is cool and most pleasing to me? Or did he actually create the creatures, create history, create the things that would happen?
Oh, so you're saying, was he intentional?
Is it causative?
Yeah. What's the difference? What difference does that make?
Determinism or Molinism?
No,
that's the difference.
Okay, so then I guess in one of those scenarios, if he's intentionally creating the entities that will bring about those results, right?
Hold on, say that again. Sorry.
So if he's intentionally creating the reality with the beings that will bring about the results he wants,
hold on.
That's determinism, right?
No, because you're saying he's creating the creatures knowing what they'll do and let them freely do it. Determinism would be he causes all things. Mm-hmm. He causes it. He is the cause. Nothing can happen apart from God.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. Sorry. So it took us 5 minutes for me to understand what he's saying.
Dude, it's a complex thing.
It's very complex.
I'll be honest with you, Ben. If you go look on YouTube about like full-on debates with very smart people.
I did, and then I fell asleep.
Well, okay, but here, do you know what most of the argument is when the pushback comes? They're like, you don't understand the argument. You don't understand the position. So even these very, very smart guys who take a lot of time to study, when they're in the middle of debate, one of their opponents a lot of times will accuse them of going, hey, I don't think you actually understand the position.
Who's accusing who? Whom's accusing whom?
I'm saying in the debate. If you went to look up a debate, there'd be an opponent, and they'd each be accusing each other of being wrong about their position.
Okay.
You know
Master debaters.
Debaters.
Sorry, I had to do that one. Sorry, man.
Okay. So I kind of get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Let me say this.
Say it.
So you're saying that the creation determines what God does. In what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yes, because God's only making his choice based on what you do, not based on what he's doing.
But that creation never existed. It was never real.
Not yet.
It was in the head of and in the omniscience of God.
Yeah.
Okay. So no, the creation doesn't make God do anything because the creation was never created. It was never real. Just because God knows everything about everything that could possibly ever exist doesn't mean that knowledge is making God make a decision. In my mind, it makes sense that just because God knows something, knows the outcome of something or the possible outcome of something, doesn't mean that knowledge causes him to act a certain way.
Then why wouldn't he choose a different one?
Why wouldn't he choose a different one?
Why wouldn't he choose a different one then? If it doesn't influence his decision?
Well, I don't think any of them were perfect. That's why he has to step into human existence. That's why he has to bring Christ in. That's why he has to do miracles. Mm-hmm. That's why he has to come down in human form and go meet with Abraham. That's why every time God has to step in, it's because none of them would have worked out without his intervention.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think it was reactionary, his stepping in, or was that his plan from the foundation of the world?
So was he reacting to the option?
Was Christ the plan from the beginning, or did he go, oh crap, Christ?
No, Christ was always the goal.
Okay, yes. So then he didn't just step in because of decisions. His plan was Christ, and he brought that about a certain way throughout history. And we read about that in the Bible, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's not because of anything people did. It's not because we failed.
It's not because we failed, but I think in
he
all
had to
options,
do it because we failed.
I think in all options within his mind, humans failed. Christ was the only way that anybody would ever be saved. Ever.
Yeah, everyone agrees that.
Okay. Yeah. So if we're all on the same page on that.
Well, I'm on the same page that Christ is needed. Okay. Absolutely essential.
So Christ is needed because no matter what, whether God's doing it, right, making everything happen constantly, humans fail. Whether God sees what options are possible in this multiverse, okay, humans will sin. Nobody will ever be saved.
Yeah.
Christ is necessary in both of our perspectives.
Okay. Yes, for sure.
Okay?
For sure.
Right. So my question is, what's the difference? What's the difference between God making every single thing happen forever in all of human history and God foreknowing and bringing into existence the reality that glorifies his son the most? What's the main difference?
Let me ask you a question with a question I think will help. I think this will just help kind of summarize it. And again, I'm not defending this position. I'm just saying what the positions are.
Also, I'm just thinking out loud. I don't have these things figured out. So I'm not defending Molinism.
Yeah.
He just called me a Molinist, so that's why I keep using that word.
I said, Ben, you are a Molinist for sure.
And so it just always, it made sense to me for some time that God just picked the reality to create, to bring into physical being.
Did he discover it?
That brought Christ the most glory.
Did he discover it? Did he look and go, oh, what's this? Oh, that's nice. Was there a point where he had to learn what that reality was?
No, because he would have always had this knowledge.
So did he have to choose a reality if he already knew?
I also think that we're using human rationale to kind of understand the mind of God.
Totally.
Which is absolutely impossible.
Yeah.
Okay. And
we all appeal to mystery at some point.
Yeah. What a coincidence that's also something that's backed by the laws of physics and dimensionality. We cannot understand higher dimensional truths.
Sure.
We can't fully understand. We could theorize about them. We could speculate on them. We could do equations that kind of foreshadow them or whatnot. But in the same way, we can't do that because higher dimensions are beyond us and we could never actually pin them down. There's no way we're going to do it with God.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to do is use modern discoveries to be like, oh, that's interesting. That might be an explanation of how God did it. You see what I'm saying?
So I think
just like some people actually believe in evolution and the Big Bang and are still Christian.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Why do they do that? Nobody believed all of those things for the past 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years. They always thought God just made it. Okay. But because of scientific discoveries, right, and advancements in academia, Christians are like, oh, well, if that's physically true, how can we understand the Bible and the truth of the gospel with these discoveries? And so they'll be like, oh, well, here's how the Big Bang, hold on, Dennis. Here's how the Big Bang happened. God spoke and bang, it happened. Okay. It's not that it came from nothing. It's not that it was just a ball of always eternally existing matter that was spinning. God created that matter, even if it was spinning for an inordinate amount of time. When it exploded, it was because God told it to explode. Sure. You know what I mean? So they fit God into their scenarios because that's what the Bible demands. Yeah. And in the same way, I'm trying to fit God into this concept of the multiverse. which is where physics is at right now. See what I'm saying? So I'm not defending it. I'm not saying I hold to this. I'm thinking out loud as you guys are asking me questions and trying to see if I have answers to your questions.
You're also trying to connect, like, what are the things in commonality between modern day discoveries in physics and Christianity?
Because they are discovering, and multiverse might not be true because it is just a theory.
Yeah.
Okay. But they are discovering truths of our physical reality, which are not debatable. Okay. Going into, hold on. Just stay there. Don't do anything. Don't move. Okay. Going into like the cellular, going into the anatomical.
US cellular?
Is that still around?
Actually, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
Sorry.
Okay, but going
Like
into
a
the
stadium,
cellular level, the anatomical level, going into the neutrons, into the proton, they just keep going smaller and smaller and smaller, and they are discovering factually, like there's not really a lot of argument to be had, even by conspiracy theorists like Dunham, but they're discovering the intricacies and the frameworks of reality. Okay, so how can, as Christians, us not be like, oh, well, how does the Bible speak to that? And how does God speak to that? And how does this fit into Jesus? I'm just trying to make sense of what they're figuring out about reality. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
Or,
Go ahead, Dennis.
Hold on, Dennis.
Or
You go, Dennis, and then I got my question.
okay, don't forget.
I won't.
So you said something interesting earlier, Ben, though. You said that as time goes by, as we get more wise, I guess, right, in technology, and we're discovering new things.
Discover more, yeah.
But when it comes to creation, though, wouldn't you agree that people that lived, towards Noah's time and before, like, would know way more about creation than we do now?
Bro.
Right? So
You want to go deep.
So to me, it's almost like as time goes by, we're getting more perverted and twisted in our mindset because Satan is the prince of this earth, right? And that
I don't know, man. I disagree. If you think we're more twisted than the times of Noah, oh man, I got a bridge to sell you.
Okay, well, let's talk about just
I think Christ is king over this earth too. Just saying.
Thank you for saying that. Our twisting of creation. Our twisting of creation, not twisting of everything, but our twisting of our concept of creation, because
in one sense, yes, because the biggest twisting of creation is probably the what's it called, the evolutionary theory, right? That's
Darwinian evolution.
Darwinian evolution.
Yeah.
Not microevolution.
Adaptational evolution.
What's the big one? What's the big? Not microevolution, but the big one.
Macro.
It's
okay.
I knew.
I was like, is he really
2.6?
I was going to say macro, but I'm like, is he not catching
2.6%. Pay me.
It's 2.6%. Sugar.
Oh, shoot, you're right. That's not even the alcohol content.
There's not even alcohol.
Oh man.
Hey, so yeah, they've twisted aspects of creation theoretically, but at the same time, they are making discoveries that are factual. You can look in a microscope and see that everything's made of little things called cells. Right. You can then break those things down even further. So they've quantified these things, and they're measurable, and they're here. There's no really, you can't really mess with them. Sure, you could theorize and screw around with where did that come from, but you can't deny that those things are there. You know what I mean?
Okay. Right.
Except they do.
Oh, you want to go deep.
Let me ask my question that gets back on track, and then I would actually love to go down how this connects to atheism and stuff, if you're willing.
Absolutely.
Only if you're willing.
And able.
Anyway, back to Molinism, determinism. I think this question kind of sums up how this affects free will and how this affects God causing history to happen regardless of our choices. Right. Let me ask you a question, okay?
Me?
Both of you. Okay. Would it have been possible for Judas not to betray Jesus?
No, never.
Ooh, he's so fast with his answer.
No, bro.
Hold
because
on. Don't stop. Let him answer.
Him?
Yes, I asked both of you. Gosh, man.
Him? Oh my goodness.
Dennis, you matter, man. I just want you to know
it's justifiable in these types of conversations.
You have way more of a place here than I
do. No, that's not true. No, that's not true. Gosh, that's such a good question.
Really?
No, stop, Ben. Stop. You're leaving
because
the witness.
I've thought of this, and my
you have.
Okay.
My instinct is to. I love you, Ben. My instinct is to say no as fast as Ben did, or faster. Oh man.
Just say it, bro.
Okay. I see this world as being constantly
wrong.
Always constantly.
He
was waiting for that.
He was just waiting. No matter what you said, that was coming out. You could have said potato and he would have hit that button, dude.
I wish I did that.
I'm sorry.
I was like even looking down, like in deep thought. And
he was just so like, deep.
He's like, I don't care what he says.
Okay, see? And that was meant to happen.
So God made that happen.
Did God make me?
That was determined.
He determined you to do that. Wow.
Do it.
So it's a great example of
that was so sacrilegious, bro.
What?
It's okay. Go ahead,
bro.
Dennis,
I think
you got to stand. You got to stand.
I think we live in a deep, dark, depraved
You got to You got to answer the question first.
He's getting there.
Yeah.
Okay.
That the only reason why there's any good,
it's because of God.
Only because of Jesus' grace.
Amen, dude.
Because
that's what I've been saying.
Hang on. Driving to work, I believe Satan wants to kill me constantly.
Sure.
I believe he wants me to trip and fall constantly as I walk to the bathroom at night. I believe that he wants me only bad, only destruction, only stealing, only death, all the time. Nothing, never lets up. Always that, always worse, always twisted and perverted. I believe because of the grace of God that we have is what protects us, whether it's protecting believers or non-believers. I believe that even the common grace, right, is protecting people. Like that's what I've come to see the world as. So when you talk about Judas making a decision, I believe that the decision was always in a sinful man's heart to sin, to choose sin, to choose
so why
death.
do people do good?
Only
people.
Because what?
Anybody. So is it that, let me ask you the question though, is it because is the reason Judas had to do what he did, is it because of sin or because of God saying this will come to pass? Where's the freedom? Where's the bondage?
I have to say it's sin.
Okay, so if it's because of sin, you're basically a hop, skip, and a jump away from total depravity of Calvinism. Mm-hmm. You can't do anything good, which would actually destroy Molinism, I think.
But I even said nobody can be saved.
I know, not your version. I'm just saying the thing that exists out there called Molinism. I'm not saying you, Ben. I'm just saying I don't think all your beliefs line up perfectly with Molinism.
I
anyways.
also don't think so.
I think if we research it, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's crap. Maybe. I don't know what you're going to come to, but I'm just saying that the reason is because if God determines what people would do because they would do good, it's not because he causes it to happen. It's because they have the ability to do that good. Right?
Yes.
So now they're not bound to the bondage of the will, to sin, to that sin nature, that all their choices are entangled up in that sin. Now they have that freedom to do good, whatever they want. So now it's a whole kind of different stream you would go down, rather than sin is the main issue in the Christian. And I think it asks a lot of questions, but with the Judas thing, I would say, if you ask me that, there's no way Judas could not have done what he did, because God said he would do it. That's what Ben said. That he wants you to know that. But Judas freely did everything he did. And that's the tension between the free will of man wrapped up in the decretive will of God.
So God didn't make Judas do it. Judas did it of his own volition, his own choices, his own free will.
But in a sense, God did, because he could not have done it any other way. There's no way
that doesn't add up.
He couldn't have. Well, this is the conversation for the last 1,600 plus years.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying.
Look at it as
literally
God allowed
this.
it. look at as allowed, not that he did, but he.
Okay.
But he couldn't have not done it because God said he would.
But it's not just God allowing it. It was mandated by God.
And if God said it would happen and it could have not happened, then God could be a liar. It says God cannot lie.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying? So if God always tells the truth, if he's a God who cannot lie, right? There's no faltering in him. There's no turning or shifting of shadow. There is no, he says, I decree the end from the beginning, right? I think it's Isaiah 46, 9 through 11. So if God said this would happen, there's no way Judas can then say, actually, something else will happen, right?
Right.
This is the whole kind of framework for determinism, that God has actually not only decreed Judas to do what he did, but all of history to be the way it is and to play out the way it has. Therefore, the reason people can't thwart it or can't change it is not because of bondage to sin, although that is absolutely a bondage we have to sin, but it is because God decreed what would come to pass the way it will.
Okay.
That's determinism.
Is it the fact that he just knew that Judas would never choose him? How
did he know?
That's where I come in.
Okay.
He looked down all the millions of possibilities and he learned.
No, not learned. You keep saying learned as if God is some kind of...
I'm just playing the advocate. I'm not even say the devil's
advocate. Say the devil. Say it.
No. The holy advocate over here that will just kind of push back as a brother
so
on everything you say.
Again, we are trying to understand the proverbial mind of God, which isn't a real mind like our mind is, where it has a beginning and an end, and it learns in between there somewhere. Okay,
all knowledge comes from God.
Everything, always, constantly, is in the mind of God. In all realities, all layers of dimension, the spiritual, the physical, everything is in the mind of God. That's what omniscience is. Okay, so here's the thing: even if God created this reality, he knows what would have happened had he created all other realities or any other iteration of reality.
Again, we're circular though, because why did he choose this one?
One had to be created.
But why did he choose it?
I don't know. Ask God. But
all
one,
then there's no point in choosing
listen. But one had to be created. Okay.
Sure.
Right?
I mean, I think God can do whatever he wants regardless of what happens with creation.
Okay, but we're not saying anything different.
Totally.
One reality had to be created.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. So if one reality had to be created, what from your perspective, from a quasi-deterministic perspective, why did God choose this reality to create?
Because it pleases him. Because
I say the same thing. Give me something more.
Oh, nice. I mean, I don't know if there is another answer. I think God is good, and what he does is good. And the definition of good is what God does and what God wants and God's ways.
You think it was because the most people would have been saved through this?
Well, I mean, I think
I don't
think that has it because
I don't think that. I think actually probably from actually go ahead. Sorry, I think he was asking you.
Were you?
I wasn't.
Okay, you go first, then I'll go.
I was just going to say I don't know if that really matters, to be honest. And this is where I think like the whole double predestination. Are you familiar with that term?
But for the viewers.
Oh, yes. Sorry. So the view that God predestines those who will inherit salvation, the elect, and then he also predestines those who would go to destruction. That before the foundation of the world, he has chosen the elect and the rest are passed over. He does not bring those into the elect, the group of the elect. Yeah. Now, whichever way you go, it doesn't change reality. Because God still chose to create those creatures that would never believe in him, knowing before they ever even were thought of being existed that they would not believe. So there is a level to where God is okay with that and allowed that to happen for these people to be created knowing that they would never believe. And now what you have to argue is, does he want them to be saved or not want them to be saved? And that's up for debate. I believe he does. I know some people don't. They would say he chose those whom he would save. And they would push back and say, is God able to save who he wants to save? If he's able to, then what's stopping him? Is it you? Is it your will? Is it your resistance to God? And that gets into irresistible grace. This gets into the whole 5 points of Calvinism. It's a system that all supports itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Ben, I think does that answer your question?
I forgot what you were saying, actually.
Beautiful.
What I was saying, or
you were going to say.
No, Dennis, you asked something.
Oh, I forgot what I was. Now I'm thinking about Calvinism and
this guy's
Driscoll.
just over here talking, and both those are like.
No, I'm listening to him, and I'm thinking about Mark Driscoll and Calvinism and how he named his kids like John.
Yeah.
And,
did he? Nice.
Like they're all like Calvinists.
Cool. Yeah.
Because he was the first one that like introduced that to me, to be honest.
Yeah, the funny thing about John Calvin too is like the 5 points of Calvinism really came to fruition after he died, like way later. The reformers all played, there's many of them, they all played crucial parts in helping develop that framework for understanding it's the sovereignty of God is kind of the main issue. And this is why when you talk with someone who's firmly holding to the Calvinistic framework, the sovereignty of God is going to be kind of the main talking point, the main point of contention with.
Why is that? Is there a contention between the sovereignty of God from a Molinistic perspective and a determinist?
Well, they would be determinists. Full 5 point Calvinists are determinists.
But I'm saying, is there a difference between the perspective of the sovereignty of God in Molinism versus Calvinism?
Well, it depends who you ask, man. Who defines arbitrarily what sovereignty is? And how exactly God has to be sovereign?
God can do and does anything and everything he wants?
Yes.
That's the sovereignty of God.
Well, it depends. Like, where's your definition of sovereignty?
What I just said.
But where'd you get it from?
The Bible.
So you'd have to read scripture to see what that.
That's why I said the Bible.
Sure. So, but they would say, like, what does it mean that he does whatever he wants? Is it that he gets whatever result he wants?
Jesus.
And that's via the means of Molinism? Or is it he literally does everything he wants? Determinism.
Jesus.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. They both would go to there. That's the place they'll go. And they're both, I don't say Molinists are not Christians.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I don't know how much the Bible supports that view. And if you listen to it, to like William Lane Craig, who's 100 million times smarter than I am, very, very smart guy. His defense of Molinism is that it's not directly from the Bible. It's a philosophical framework that we learn to help understand biblical contentions. And he would say Calvinism is the exact same thing. It is the
same thing. That's what all of these terms we put on things are. It's just ways we're trying to explain what we're reading in the Bible.
Every Calvinist would disagree with you.
The word Calvinism is not found in the Bible.
Neither is rapture.
Okay, the word Molinism is not found in the Bible. Arminianism is not found. Pre-tribulation and rapture is not found in the Bible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All of these things, all of these terms that we then expand upon and we use to try to explain what the Bible is saying.
Yeah.
All of those things are just words that we're making up. Just like Calvin did, just like homeboy over here, Luis de Molina. That's, he created he's just explaining.
Did you do this? Molina.
Luis de Molina.
Who created open theism? Come on.
I don't know, but open theism is open. In my opinion, open theism is the result of syncretism.
What's that?
Syncretism means to take two views that do not coincide and try and hold them in tension together and try and make them work. Similarly, how you brought up Darwinian evolution, I would argue Darwinian evolution is syncretistic. I don't actually think it works with Christianity. I just don't think it does. I don't think you're a heretic because you believe in Darwinian evolution. I just think you're wrong. I don't think it works. But I think that those who would hold to that, because they're holding to that syncretistic framework, over time, they're going to have to start including more syncretistic ideas because those ideas are contrary. Those ideas presuppose other ideas and lead to other conclusions. And eventually, just like your bullet analogy or like train tracks, if they're parallel, they will always be in tension. They're non-syncretistic, or they're non-syncretistic. They're in sync, right? If they're slightly off, just barely, now they are syncretistic to where over time they lead further and further apart.
Yeah. So what have we discovered today?
Can I give you some Bible verses?
Sure, man.
Remember earlier you asked if I can prove
did you
it
just
to
sit here and research Bible verses? Or
No, what do you mean?
Head?
Research
Dude,
what?
It's in his head. It's in his yed.
It's like the knowledge that God has. It exists in his mind.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's real until he like makes it real.
Sure.
So it all existed in my head, but now I'm going to make it real.
Okay, what scripture are you going to bring? Let's bring it. Let me hear.
Okay.
Get me learned.
I'm going to read it to you.
I thought you had it in your head.
Okay.
You can't get up. What do you mean? You're supposed to.
No, I know the context.
I'd rather have him read it.
You know the
yeah, trust me.
I know it's in Deuteronomy. Okay, I get it. I know that much.
It's in the first half of the thickness of the Bible.
Okay, let's hear it.
Matthew 11.
Okay.
Verse 20.
Go until.
You got it in your head?
I got. Well, I know some of that.
I'm not going to let you see this.
I just go ahead.
Then Jesus began to criticize openly the cities in which he had done many of his miracles because they did not repent. Yeah. Woe to you, Chorizo. Chorazin. Okay.
Chorazin.
Woe to you, Bethsaida. If the miracles done in you. Hold on. If the miracles done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes, carrying on.
Doesn't prove your point.
And you, Capernaum, you will be exalted. Will you be exalted to heaven? No, you will be thrown down to Hades. For if the miracles done among you had been done in Sodom
and Gomorrah,
just Sodom in this one, not Gomorrah, even though they're both destroyed at the exact same time for the exact same reasons, Sodom and Gomorrah. Only Sodom would have repented, not Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay,
well, he doesn't say that. It just says Sodom would have.
I know, but
it doesn't say.
But you jumped.
Gomorrah wouldn't have.
You jumped to the conclusion.
See, that's like the Passion Translation version of this. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God!
I'm kidding.
Okay.
Just go.
Okay,
just go.
So
I'm sorry.
In all of human history, Sodom. Well, not all of it, but in biblical history, Sodom and Gomorrah are united because they were destroyed at the same time for the exact same reasons for the same sins.
They represent something.
They represent something. Together. Okay. That's why as I'm reading the verse, it only says Sodom would have repented and continued to this day. Yeah. Interestingly enough, not Gomorrah, but you wanted to instantly read Gomorrah into it, even though, sure, it doesn't say. It doesn't say
said that, bro.
Gomorrah. It doesn't.
Got it wrong. Man.
It doesn't say Gomorrah. Okay, hold on. Let me kick you a little more, and then I'll.
Go ahead, man. I'm down.
It doesn't say Gomorrah would not have repented, but by leaving it out, I can make a small argument that it's possible that he knew that Gomorrah would still have been destroyed.
America's in there too.
Hold on,
because he didn't say that either. I could just
China.
China's in there too.
But in the Bible, when it says Sodom and Gomorrah, it doesn't say Sodom and America. You know,
I didn't say Gomorrah either. Is what my point is.
I'm not going to read all of it. Okay,
just go listen to the ones we did on Mark 13 and Luke 21. All of that is dramatic, emphatic hyperbole.
Okay, so you just don't think that realistically, Jesus is actually saying that Sodom would have continued and that Chorizo would have repented?
I'm not saying that at all.
But you're saying that it's hyperbole.
Yeah. Which
doesn't mean it's real. It just
That's
means
not true.
Hyperbole is...
Yeah.
Okay, so it could be real. So how does this not prove my point? That God has an idea of what could have happened. I'm not saying it
doesn't prove your point. I'm just saying it doesn't prove your point. I'm just not saying Jesus is teaching what would have happened in a different reality. I'm just saying he used this to condemn his generation, said if I would have done this to them, that's what they would have repented. You're worse than them is what he's saying.
Okay.
That's his point. I'm not saying he's not teaching that.
But
I'm saying you can't take that verse and prove that he's giving a descriptive teaching for the multiverse where God makes different decisions based on what would have happened.
Sure. Maybe it doesn't go to the extent that I'm trying to describe, right? And think out loud with you guys for. But would you admit that this is an example of knowledge that God has and Christ had of a scenario that did not happen, but would have happened had certain things been different in human reality?
Sure.
Okay, cool. Let me give you that second one.
Yeah.
Because maybe this one's hyperbole too.
Oh, wow.
First Samuel. Dude, good, right? Great.
You got to get a little... I'm
that's
still
a
piece of garbage. Can you do that one? Because that's how I feel when you say it like that.
Oh, hi. Thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
I like that. It's cute. You're not a piece of garbage, bro. We get along.
Just like a whole thing of it.
This is another passage that's probably not hyperbole.
It's pronounced passage. But
Passage.
Passage.
1 Samuel 23:10. This is when David is running away from Saul, right? With his 600 troops. Then David said, "O Lord God of Israel, your servant has clearly heard that Saul is planning to come to Keilah to destroy the city because of me. Mm-hmm. Will the leaders of Keilah deliver me into his hands? Will Saul come down as your servant has heard? O Lord God of Israel, please inform your servant." Then the Lord said, "He will come down." David asked, "Will the leaders of Keilah deliver me and my men into Saul's hand?" The Lord said, "They will deliver you over." So David and his men, who numbered 600, set out and left Keilah. They moved around from one place to another. So because God said, "I know what's going to happen. You will be delivered and the city will be destroyed," David's like, "Okay, cool. Peace. I'm out." And they left and they went somewhere else to and fro. And David survived and wasn't killed. And the Bible continues. God had knowledge of what would have happened had David actually gone into Keilah, which is what he wanted to do, or stayed in Keilah.
Explain to me this again. Go ahead.
CC. Read you it?
Yeah, let's go through it again.
Okay. Dennis, did you capture?
Yeah, I'm totally with you.
Okay. So, verse 10,
Yep.
1 Samuel 23:10. Then David said, "O Lord of Israel, your servant has clearly heard that Saul is planning to come to Keilah to destroy the city because of me." David's hiding out in Keilah with 600 men because Saul is chasing him, right? And David catches wind that Saul's on his way. "Will the leaders of Keilah deliver me into his hand? Will Saul come down as your servant has heard? O Lord God of Israel, please inform your servant." Then the Lord said, "He will come down." David asked, "Will the leaders of Keilah deliver me and my men into Saul's hands?" The Lord said, "They will deliver you over." So David and his men, who numbered 600, set out and left Keilah. They moved around from one place to another.
Sure.
God explains to him the result of an action that he was trying to understand if he should do or not. And God tells him,
Joseph in Egypt.
What do you mean?
That they're going to come kill your kid. Flee. If you stay here, they will kill the kid.
Okay, right. So God has knowledge of things that don't come into fruition, don't come into reality at all.
Well, of course. Yeah.
And then he intervenes to make certain things actually happen.
Hold on.
Because God could have not answered him.
Did he? Well, hold the thing though. Here's the thing, man.
Yes.
I disagree with that.
What?
What the last thing you said about he intervenes because of this.
Oh, sure. That's my stipulation.
That's the stipulation. Exactly.
Right.
It's like when Moses, when God says, "I'm going to destroy all of the Israelites," and Moses intercedes, right? Did he not destroy them because Moses interceded? Or was that his plan, was to provoke Moses to an intercessory position where he would intercede on behalf of Israel like a type of Christ?
Oh, man. Oh,
right?
Man.
Why are you laughing, Dennis?
Oh,
and then he saves Israel because that's what he was actually determined to do. Do you see what I'm saying? It doesn't exactly prove your point, but absolutely I would say these could be texts. But I also think that there's conditional things in the Bible, lots of conditional promises. So guess what? What happens when Jesus said inside the city in Matthew 24, Luke 21, Mark 13, what does he say? He says, "Flee." What happens if you don't flee?
You're going to die.
You're going to die.
Right. So just
conditional.
Here's the other thing about my perspective on this.
That's not I don't think your position's full. Like that's not Molinism even.
This?
What your position?
Oh, I don't think so either.
No.
I think it kind of overlaps because this is the thing.
Maybe some commonality.
I really don't see a lot of like difference between the determinist perspective and the Molinist perspective because you guys, we're just talking.
You guys. I haven't said I'm a determinist.
I know it's true, and I haven't said I'm a Molinist. But
I haven't said you're a Molinist either.
You did Thursday, and I'm holding it against you.
Oh my goodness! No.
Hey, there's not a lot of difference in my opinion. Because one wants to say God is actively making it, doing it, causing it, okay? And the other, the Molinist, the multiversalist, okay, is like, yeah, God's doing it, God's causing it, because he made this option of reality, which is unfolding exactly as he needed it to. He doesn't have to sit here and make every single thing happen constantly in all of human history and reality. He doesn't have to be actively doing
it
it.
Doesn't matter. Has he decreed that it will?
Yes.
Can it not?
No.
There you go.
Oof.
That's what I'm saying.
That's determinism. Yeah.
You're a determinist.
Yeah.
But
nothing can happen outside of what he decrees will happen.
I agree.
There you go.
But the mechanism he used to do what you just described and to bring about what he determined was the reality he chose to create. Because here's the thing. Do you know why you do what you do?
Oh yeah, dude, I messed up.
Yeah, okay. But really, even in non-Christian circles, this is the question. Nurture versus nature. Okay? Nobody knows why they do what they do. You could have been born somewhere else. I could have been born somewhere else. Guess what? The guy that brought David the message that, hey, Saul's on his way to Keilah. Okay? And then David gets down and prays, oh, Lord, is Keilah going to turn me over because I heard Saul's on his way? The guy that brought David that message could have slept in that morning. His freaking rooster could have got eaten by a fox. And could have got eaten by a fox and could have not woken up, right? At the sound of... So there's so
God
many
said
things.
He'll come down.
Well,
if David doesn't leave, he's coming down. So does that mean it's actually determined what he'll do based on what David does?
See, here's what I think. Not what I think, but here's a question.
There's so many layers, man.
I think there's layers.
You guys have,
and my perspective takes into account the layers and doesn't just simplify it by saying God does it all, because then you're screwed. Because then God's to blame for everything.
Totally, I'm not. I'm also not a determinist.
Go ahead, Dennis.
I think that there's also the delivery of the circumstance. So sure. David prayed, right? He heard something and he prayed for an answer. God gave him an answer. He could have still stayed.
Would God have saved him?
100%.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he said if you don't leave, they're going to come take you.
Yeah, he literally said what's going to happen if he doesn't leave.
Deliver you into them, but that doesn't mean...
Well, that's true. I guess. So then, okay.
So there could have been a different story outcome.
So then has everything. Right. So then has everything that's ever happened. Listen, if David wouldn't have fled, you know what would be different? This would be different. Is this not the perfect word of God that exists exactly as it was supposed to exist?
It's perfect because that's how we received it.
Well, I'm going to also push back a little bit too and say this is English, the Greek.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? We're beyond that.
It's not the TPT.
Beyond that. It's not. It's definitely not as good as the Passion. So
okay, Dennis, you don't actually think that everything in here itself, the way it happened, is perfect? You think that the Bible is only perfect because of the way it has been given to us through God? I mean, by God.
Well, doesn't that make it perfect anyway?
So,
do you see what I'm saying?
But doesn't that make it perfect though? Doesn't that make it perfect either way you get it? I mean, whether it makes it perfect, no matter what, it's perfect.
It does, but one of those perspectives can leave open the door that things could have happened differently.
Oh, that sounds like a Molinist.
That does. It sounds like
it could have happened differently. Got him!
You got me.
He got himself, man.
Dang, dude. Hey, all that beside though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just real quick, will you forget?
I already forgot.
Okay, I'll be quick. Hopefully you remember. I was just going to say, within Christendom, there are some other alternative views, and some of those would be like the things that were very strongly determined to the minute detail about were things that were only related to Christ, bringing about the gospel, things like that. In the Bible is the way that we have it. And how that story unfolded, and not literally everything like what cereal you eat or what shoe you grabbed this morning or you got a flat tire. I would say there's everything's a trade-off in life, and everything's a trade-off in theology. There's benefits to certain theological frameworks, but there's also things that are sucky, and you have to work with all of them. Yeah. None of them are perfect, you know?
Right. Well.
Yeah. I just am trying to also take into account all the nuances of people's decision making as well. I don't think anybody can honestly say that they know for a fact why they do certain things that they do. People don't know where their ideas come from. People don't know. There's so many factors that go into every single little minute detail of who we are and why we do what we do. And to say that, you'd have to say that every one of those thoughts is like God doing it in your mind constantly if you're a determinist, or you're just on your own, autonomous, until God needs you to react a certain way and he nudges you into that direction to bring about his will.
Okay, so let's talk practical.
And then you freely choose the nudge.
Let's give that in some life, some practicality.